Welcome to the Invest in Denver podcast. I'm Jeff Hall. I'm the Senior Development Officer at Cross Purpose, and I am with your host, Ian Jimeno. And my favorite activity to bring out-of-town guests to do in Colorado is rent a pontoon party boat on Lake Granby. I think that is the best way to show people the beauty of our state.
That is awesome. I have not done that myself. So I have been to Granby once, and I want to say that it felt like a Hallmark card, especially with the hot springs down the street. I stayed there over New Year's Eve going into New Year's, and it was everything I wanted out of like a log cabin Airbnb situation, So why would you take someone there? Is it the scenery? Is it just the overall mountain views or the isolation? What is it that really draws you to that place?
I think part of it is I grew up on the East Coast and I grew up by the water. And so that is kind of one of the areas in Colorado where you get water and mountains together. And so it just fills up my bucket, and grew up around boats and sailing. And so to be able to be out on a boat in the water, but surrounded by mountains is really fun. And then any guests that have done that with me are just wanting to move to Colorado right away. So it's perfect.
I agree. I feel like that's such a good way to get people in there. And I will say that I guess my only qualm with that area is that there's not too many resorts close by. Am I wrong in saying that? Or are more of the resorts like more to the west where you can go snowboard and ski? Or is there something close by?
I actually think that's probably why I like it, because there isn't resorts nearby. It is a little bit more mountain town-esque. And so whenever I've done weekends up there, I'll just stay in an Airbnb. And it's, you're walking around towns and it is not this Vail Village type place where everything's really expensive and art galleries and all this stuff. You're just walking through towns with regular people out in the mountains. And that's what I like to do.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And you even have the flannel on right now to really give that mountainish look.
Yeah, it was the first day the
Love it.
weather really turned. And so I got to pull out the flannel today.
That's right. The true Colorado attire, if you ask me. So with that being said, Jeff, thank you so much for even being on the Invest in Denver podcast. We have so much to cover, especially you being a part of Cross Purpose. As I delve deeper into the program and into the nonprofit organization that you work with, it is just blowing my mind that not too many people have even heard of this. And I'm really excited to just bring out everything about it, all the attributes and how you benefit the community in general. But before we even get to there, Jeff, I'm curious, it sounds like you grew up in the East Coast and you did not, I guess, you weren't too affiliated with Denver growing up, but maybe just introduce the audience how you got introduced to Denver or even the Front Range, and what were the series of events leading to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up in New Jersey and moved out to Colorado when I was 10 because of my dad's job. And so our whole family moved out here. And I really was kicking and screaming, not wanting to leave because I loved my friends there. I liked the environment. But now looking back, I couldn't imagine not having left New Jersey. Colorado is so much better, except we have spent our summers back in New Jersey. So all through, middle school and high school and even through college, we still spent our summers in New Jersey on a little island called Long Beach Island. And so really fond memories there. That's where I grew up sailing and doing water stuff and boats and all that. And then spent my school year out in Colorado. And so I went to high school out here, but I went to college in Florida, went to Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, and was on the sailing team there. And so just continued kind of that passion for sailing and being on the water. And then after college, had an opportunity to help a friend start a nonprofit in Rwanda. And I just me and her, we bought one-way tickets to Rwanda, never having been there before, not having any idea what we were doing. Looking back, it was very dumb, but it did work out. And so we bought some tickets to go over there, and then just started trying to figure it out. Ended up starting a nonprofit over there and doing some small business development and microfinance loans. And I was teaching English and also teaching life skills and some other business skills in a bunch of different villages there, and still really connected with the work going on over there. But then after that, moved back to the US and was like, all right, where am I going to put my roots down? I want to be somewhere that I can be grounded and I can be invested in the community like I was when I was in Rwanda. And I want to bring that same kind of attitude to where I'm going to be in the US. And so that's when I moved full time to Denver and moved into Denver full time 2013.
2013. And then you stayed in that whole nonprofit mindset and you wanted to bring up the community here, even in the Denver area. But I kind of want to touch on that Rwanda, I guess, experience. I mean, it takes so much gusto just to even go across the Atlantic in Africa, a whole different continent, just to start a whole new nonprofit. And what really drove you to do it? Is there any sort of like maybe something internal that was like, I got to do this? There's so many people out there that might be underprivileged, or what were some main drivers for you to even start this with your business partner?
Yeah, I think there's not any one thing. There was a lot of stuff that happened throughout my life where I got to experience that led me to that point. One of them was I got to travel growing up, and I'd gone on some mission trips with my church when I was younger, and I got to experience some developing countries, and that just opened my eyes to other people's experiences that are living in this world at the same time I am, and just having very different experiences. And I grew my heart towards that population and wanted to spend more and more time with them. And then when a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's go to Rwanda," I was like, "Yes, let's do it."
Yeah, I love to hear it. And it sounds like you've that church aspect of it. And I myself like grew up in a Catholic family. I went to a private school in elementary school and high school as well over in the San Diego area. And it's nice to know that, you know, that same feeling is of course nationwide and worldwide, honestly. But it's there's so many things about it that people were, I guess, not in tune with a typical Catholic school life, you know. Sorry, I'm like fumbling over my words for some reason, but but the thing is that there's a lot of unknowns to like the religious community as far as like donating or giving charitable work, and also just feeling that emotional presence and you being there physically in person. There's so much more to that than, let's say, just donating to your local charity. Being there in person, it almost gives back more knowing that you're there in person physically. Is that something that maybe, I mean, you could have just donated to the whole nonprofit organization in Rwanda, but instead you went there, you know? So that's something to be said about that.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. There is absolutely benefit of just giving money to things, but when you're actually a part of it and you get to build relationship and get to have that connection to what's really happening and to those people, that is where kind of the magic happens. And so I'm really grateful to be able to have had those opportunities to not just sponsor a kid that I see a postcard from once a year or something. I went there, got to meet the kids, got to build a relationship with them. I get to sponsor them, but also I'm talking to them on WhatsApp every single day. And that's the type of
Mm.
relationship I want to be having versus just sending a check and hoping it's being used well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Making sure that the job is done on your end in person. I love to see it. So with that being said, I mean, I know that how we initially met was over at the Bigger Pockets convention over in the San Diego area. With that being my hometown and the convention being over there too, I was like, yes, I'm definitely going. And that was the first time that I've ever been to a Bigger Pockets convention. And you and Josh were over there as well. And I guess I'm interested to hear what your experience was with Bigger Pockets convention. And I know now that Cross Purpose, which we will talk about later, was directly involved with the sponsorship and just that involvement with Bigger Pockets. So nonetheless, how was your experience at Bigger Pockets convention over in San Diego?
And my experience was awesome. I've been really attracted to Bigger Pockets for a long time because I think they do excellent work and they do it at a really high level. And so their conference was the same. It was really well put together, lots of great breakout sessions, lots of great speakers, a lot of great networking events, way to connect with people. And so the BPCon was an amazing experience. My only issue was I had to speak at it, and I spoke on the very last day of the very last event. So I was freaking out the whole time, being prepping for it, being nervous for it, all that stuff. So I couldn't enjoy it as much as I wish I was able to. So hopefully next BPCon, I'll be able to really be there without having to always be prepping my speech and my slides and talking with the IT people and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, and not only that, but Cross Purpose made a presence over in the silent auction portion of it, which was like on the last day. Maybe it was your speech might have been after that, or maybe even during it. But Cross Purpose had that involvement as well, and some people were like donating a good amount of money just to like be a part of that and just supporting a organization like Cross Purpose. So, what was that auction, and what was it for? What were people bidding on?
Yeah, that was really awesome, and I would love to talk more about the partnership that Bigger Pockets has created with Cross Purpose because I think it's a really beautiful thing. But as part of that partnership, we were invited to be there and be the charity partner of choice for Bigger Pockets, and so as part of that process, I got to speak, on the main stage there and share about what Cross Purpose does and how it works, and then also, we're going to be having a Bigger Pockets class. So I'll share more about what this means with Cross Purpose, but they're going to be sponsoring an actual class that's going through the Cross Purpose program. And just really beautiful to see them using their platform to be able to help bring people into the fold of what Cross Purpose is doing and for them to be able to get involved with it. And so as part of that, we did a live auction to benefit Cross Purpose, and we gave out a whole bunch of stuff like coaching sessions with really awesome BP people, different trips, different events, tickets to next year's conference, and so there's about 15 different live auction items that we were able to raffle away so that people can bid on them, and all that money went to benefit Cross Purpose, and so it's a really beautiful thing.
Love it. I love to hear it. And I did not know about that more of a stronger affiliation with Bigger Pockets. And speaking of Bigger Pockets, when we were talking previously before we hit record, we were talking about how Scott Trench initially heard of Cross Purpose. And I want to hear that story one more time, and especially for the audience to really understand like where this all started and how that involvement or that affiliation even started. Scott Trench is a legend in my book, and I love his book Set for Life. And that's something that Cross Purpose, I'm sure, really listen to that, and they really implement a lot of the things that he possibly put in his book Set for Life. And you guys are guiding people to be set for life. So do you mind like telling that story of Scott Trench and how that involvement with Bigger Pockets even started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got to meet Scott Trench probably about 4 years ago, where he came into Cross Purpose wanting to volunteer with us. And so after getting to know him, he shared how he had been looking at different organizations around the city. So we both Scott and I live in Denver, and so he'd been looking through all different organizations in Denver to find one that he could really sink his teeth into, that he can give financially to, but also volunteer with and be a part of. And so throughout that search, he landed on Cross Purpose because we're an outcomes-based nonprofit that has real tangible results, but there's a lot of relational components to it. And so you get to build a relationship with people you might not otherwise know, while seeing their transformation in their lives and seeing change in their lives and being able to track that change. And so he just latched on to that idea, and he just volunteered with us for a few years and just walk alongside people that are going through our program. And then separate from that, I started really pursuing real estate and trying to absorb as much information as possible, and came across this podcast, Bigger Pockets podcast, started just listening to hours and hours of that. And then I was emailing with Scott. We were going to go grab lunch, and I saw his email signature, and I'm like, wait, CEO of Bigger Pockets? No, this can't be the same Bigger Pockets. And sure enough, it was. I was like, what the heck? That's crazy. So, then we just got to talking more about that and how can BP partner with Cross Purpose more, and how do we go deeper in this relationship. And so it was just awesome to see that.
That is so cool. I love to see it, man. Especially like when big forces like you guys come together, so much can change. And I'm curious too. I know with Scott Trench, when you're first starting out, let's say if I know a lot of people that reach out to, let's say, how to make passive income or how to, get rid of your credit card debt as soon as possible. A lot of people gear themselves towards like the Dave Ramsey method or something like that. And a lot of people have a negative net worth prior to even investing in something because they got to dig themselves out of that hole, get to zero prior to investing any sort of money in general. So I know with a lot of the Bigger Pockets community, they're all about leveraging debt though. And having that debt is so significant in order to build up that real estate portfolio, get even more ahead in life. But Dave Ramsey sort of doesn't agree with that, or at least there's people out there that benefit more from the Dave Ramsey method prior to leveraging that debt. Is there anything you can speak on as far as like those two dichotomies, and have you seen that be beneficial in, what you've seen in Cross Purpose or even in your personal life?
Yeah, I think where Dave Ramsey is the most effective is working with people who have a hard time budgeting and saving or are coming out of generational poverty, so they've never seen good habits with money. And so, his model is, no debt, pay off everything, pay off your house, don't leverage anything. And that is really needed for specific type of people who aren't just keep racking up money on their credit cards and just aren't able to save in the way that they want to. And so that's been really beneficial. We teach some of those models in our program, because part of our program is financial health. And actually, this is an area that Scott has been a huge volunteer and contributor to at Cross Purpose. We take a group of our alumni through this financial health class, because once you get money, it doesn't mean you're good with money. And so now that you've got money, you need to learn how to manage it. And so we use a lot of, this debt snowball and this baby steps that Dave Ramsey talks about. And it's really effective. I think it's a great model. Then once you can get that down, and then you move into this, okay, I'm at square one now. I've got all my debt paid off, and I'm getting some net positive net worth. Then it's like, okay, what does that look like now? And then that's when I diverge a bit from the Dave Ramsey model, because I invest in real estate and I leverage my money to do that. And so then, once you get this baseline, then it's okay, let's talk through the Bigger Pockets method of investing in real estate and having your money work for you.
Love it. Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's a really nice starting point in order to get to that zero portion, and then leveling up from there. It makes total sense. So without further ado, I know we've sort of been dancing around the subject of Cross Purpose, but I feel like we should really get into it now. So with all these affiliations that you're with, I mean, even with Bigger Pockets, investing, bringing out the community with your nonprofit background as well, what is Cross Purpose, Jeff? And can you explain like what exactly is and where do you service?
Absolutely. So Cross Purpose is a 6-month career development school that helps get adults out of poverty. So we work with people who are serious about making a change in their life, but just haven't been given the opportunity or support to do so. And we'll teach them the soft skills and hard skills that they need to be successful in a professional environment, and walk with them every step of the way to make that happen. So we started 10 years ago in this idea of, hey, we want to serve our neighbors. We want to help our neighbors. And what was modeled for our founders was hygiene kits and turkey drives, and let's give out socks. And so that's what we had seen when people are in poverty. Hey, let's give them things, because that let's give them some relief. And what we realized is year after year we're serving the same families, and so it wasn't changing the game for anybody. And so how do you move from a relief model to a development model? And it was this mindset shift of, we don't want to help people in poverty, we want to help people escape poverty. And so once we went down this road of how do we help people escape poverty, that's when the Cross Purpose model got developed.
Excellent. And I love that aspect of it. Like, it's not how do we help someone in poverty, it's how do we get someone out of poverty. So I'm curious what that 6 months even looks like. And that seems like a really quick timeline for you to even boost someone up out of that poverty situation. So what does that look like? What does the 6 months look like for the average applicant?
Absolutely. So the 6 months is broken up into 3 phases. So the first phase of the program is the first 6 weeks which is called personal development. And so that is all of the soft skills that you need to be successful in a workplace. So that's everything from interview skills or conflict resolution or professional dress. There's also a lot of time where we are working through past traumas in order to work through that so that you can move forward without it affecting your future. We give access to counseling, a lot of coaching and support. So that is just total internal work. What do you need? What do you need to work through? And what are some skills that you need to add to your tool belt? So that's first phase, personal development. Second phase is skills development. And so that's getting our folks an actual skill, a certification to have them qualified for a higher paying job. So we've got about 15 to 20 different career tracks that we pay for. It's fully free to anyone going through our program. So we pay for them to get certified. They can be in the trades, so welding, plumbing, carpentry, electrician, pipe fitting certifications, medical field. So we've got medical billing and coding, CNA, nurse's assistant. We've got bookkeeping, a bunch of other different career tracks. Then the last phase of the program is career launch. So that is actually working with our employment team to help get you a job. And so you actually are getting a job before you walk across that graduation stage. So it's not a program that just says, hey, this is how many people we served. Hey, we helped you. Here's a piece of paper. Now, how many are actually out of poverty by the time you walk across that graduation stage? So that's our benchmark. And so for us, they've got to be making a living wage in the career that they were trained in that will be able to pull them and their families out of poverty. And that's how we track our data.
Love it. And where are these applicants coming from? I mean, are they already working a job, but maybe it's just not as lucrative compared to with these hard set of skills that you teach them? Or, what's the sort of background that your typical applicants have prior to joining Cross Purpose?
Yeah, so we have a lot of awesome people coming from a lot of different walks of life. But one story would be a single mom with 2 or 3 kids that's working 2 or 3 jobs, and that is what they're trying to do to provide for their families. And because they don't have the skills or support or network to just get one job that'll pay all the bills, they're working 80 hours a week, piecing together all these different jobs to provide for their family. And they hear about us and say, okay, so this organization is free, and actually we pay the people to go through. We pay them a living stipend to help them pay for groceries and transportation while they're going through the program. And it's fully free for them. So all the training and certifications are free. And then we get them a job that pays a living wage. And so for us in Denver, that's at least $19 an hour. A lot of our people are making $20, $25 an hour with some of these career tracks. And so that's somebody that would be coming to our program. Also, there's people that are coming out of high school that just haven't had the opportunity to go to college, or that wasn't modeled for them and their families. And so they're like, all right, I'm 19, I'm 20. This real world stuff is harder than I thought it was going to be. And now I hear about Cross Purpose. Okay, they're going to upskill me. They're going to train me and to get to these type of jobs that actually can give me that living wage. Because you don't need to go to college to have an awesome career. I mean, there's a huge demand for people in the trades right now, and CDL drivers. And we got CDL drivers that are making $80,000 coming out of Cross Purpose and who are
Awesome.
21 years old. And it's just, you don't need college for that.
Yeah. And that's something that I want to, I guess, pick your brain a little bit more. I mean, the standard way of getting into, I guess, not the standard, but like the mental standard of getting into the workforce is going through college, a 4-year college where you're paying like $50,000, $60,000 for the 4 years, and you don't get a job. You get a piece of paper, almost like a receipt, saying that, yes, you did pay $60,000 for a skill that you have not implemented yet into the industry or into the workforce. And so when these people they're $60,000 in debt, and now they're starting a starting salary of maybe say 50 grand or 60 grand, right? I mean, that's before taxes and all that good stuff, but you still have to go through the application processes. And there's still a lot of students out there that don't have these soft skills, but they're not necessarily like impoverished or anything like that. They still can't come from like a more privileged family. So I just want to like pick your brain on that and see what your opinion is of like, is college as necessary as before? Maybe this is more of a softball question, but nonetheless, like I kind of want to hear where you're coming from on that, and if you have any other introspections on that.
Yeah, Ian, I'm pro college overall. I think it can be really beneficial, not because of the piece of paper that you get, but because you've got 4 more years where you get to develop as an adult and as a young professional, and 4 more years of support in an incubated environment that you've got professors and counselors and peers, and you just get to learn who you are. Because who I was when I was
Mm,
18 versus who I was when I was 22 were pretty different people. And
yeah.
so that part about college, I think, is really beneficial. Uh, yeah, you learn some stuff. Most of the stuff you really learn is on the job. So there's definitely benefit to going to college. You get to learn some stuff. That part of it to me is not the highest value, though. It is getting 4 more years to get poured into and to learn who you are before you got to figure it out on your own.
Okay. Yeah. I see where you're coming from, and that's all honestly pretty good as far as understanding your social circles, developing yourself in a contained area where it's like, okay, now I'm ready to reach that next level of being an adult, a contributing member of society, and now I have a hard skill that I can make a living off of and pay my taxes. I mean, government likes that part. But I guess going back to the whole cross purpose aspect of it. So you were mentioning certain career pathways, that people can join or hard skills that they can learn with cross purpose. Do you mind repeating them one more time and maybe see like what are people gravitating to? And is there some sort of benefit to going one pathway versus another? Or do you feel like it's whatever I guess, your mind or your personality leads to?
Yeah, so there's a couple components that go into picking a career track across purpose. One of them is we work with a lot of people coming out of incarceration, and so it is just really difficult oftentimes to get a job if you've got stuff on your record or you're still on parole or probation. So that is something that our career coaches work with folks that are coming through our program and to help guide them in that area. Because there's some laws in place that say if you got a violent offense, you by law can't work in a medical facility. And so those are some things that we help them navigate. Or you got, 4 DUIs, it's going to be really impossible or hard for you to get hired as a CDL driver, as a commercial driving license driver for a company. And so we help to navigate those things. So that's part of figuring out which avenue that they want to go down. But we also have them during the admissions process take a lot of personality and skill tests to figure out, hey, what are you good at? Do you like working with your hands? Are you more analytical? Do you like being out in the office? Do you like the flexibility of working remote? All that kind of stuff that goes into it to figure out which areas that you might want to go in. And then we work with you to figure out, okay, you like working with your hands, you've done some stuff, you've enjoyed doing house projects and things in the past, you've worked with your uncle when he was fixing, this and that at his house. Maybe you'd be interested in some of the trades. And here's what those trades options are. You can be an electrician, plumber, carpenter, HVAC, welder. And then here's what those career paths look like and how much money you can be making in those paths and what the advancement opportunities are. And then ultimately, it's on our students to make those decisions.
Gotcha. And I know even with any sort of education or material that you need to be there in person, you were with Cross Purpose even during COVID. Was there any sort of issues with being in classes, or did you have to go virtual? What was that transition like, if there was one?
Yeah, you're asking, was there any issues during COVID? Heck yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot we had to figure out. So we had to really pivot because we are all in person. We just, that relational piece is why this program is successful. So not only do we do the soft skills, the hard skills in getting the career, but we bring in a lot of support to walk with you every step of the way. We believe in this idea that there is no significant change without significant relationship. And so we want to be that relationship to our folks as they're going through the program. And that's where Scott Trench came into play. He was one of those relationships that's walking with our students as they're going through the program. Yeah, and so in terms of COVID, what that did is we had to shut down our building and go fully remote. So a totally in-person program where we have about 100 people in the building on a daily basis, have to totally decentralize all that, put all the classes online, and be able to do it on Zoom. And it worked out. So we were able to still keep going, and we were able to graduate people. We're still able to get people jobs. It just took longer, and just still walk with people as they're going through this process. And then luckily, as that all that restrictions were lifting, we were able to get back in person, because that is where the magic really is.
Love it. And that aspect of having people in the classrooms, having people teach. It sounds like you have a pretty robust staff, even with Cross Purpose. And I've heard you mention a couple of people, career coaches, leaders, and allies. So what are these titles, and how are people affiliated with those titles?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a growing staff. We're expanding. So we started in Northeast Denver at our main location. And then we've got a 5-year plan to get to 4 sites over the next 5 years. And our idea is to get a Cross Purpose in every high poverty neighborhood in the Denver metro area. And so that's what we're doing. We're on a mission to bring Cross Purpose to our neighbors' backyards, and to be able to give them this opportunity, and not for them to have to travel 2 hours plus on different buses and all that stuff to get to us. We want to come to them. And so that's what it looks like now. And we want to continue to grow and expand our staff to be able to go to the different locations. We launched our second site last year, which was our first kind of pilot satellite location. And so that's called our South Metro site. So that's down around, people are from the Denver area, that's around Broadway and Hamden. We've got a location there, and we've just started our second class there ever, and that's going on right now. And then next year, we're going to do 2 to 3 classes in that location. Then in 2023, we're going to get our third site. In 2024, our fourth site. And so then we'll be able to have 4 locations up by then.
Love it. I love the progression. I love the future that you have planned with Cross Purpose. This is so good. Being everywhere so that people can have an easier time to get to these locations. It just makes so much sense for your mission and everything like that. So, I mean, I know you mentioned that you have leaders there, and as far as wanting to get people that have been through this program possibly and have those hard set of skills to teach the future generation. What is that application like, or how are you finding these leaders to help out the next Cross Purpose class?
Absolutely. Yeah, we use some different terms like Cross Purpose. So leader, we've got the word leader, which is what we call our students, because they're leading their own change. They're leading their journey. We just want to be that scaffolding around them and support them as they're doing that. And then we also use this term ally, which is like what Scott was, is he's walking alongside our leaders. And so it's not this mentor-mentee model where I'm better than you and let me tell you how to do this. It's let's walk with each other together on this journey. And so we find the leaders in 3 different main channels. So one big one is referrals. So a leader will graduate from Cross Purpose and then just refer their friend, their brother, their neighbor, their aunt. And so that's been a huge avenue for us, because they've experienced it. They've had this life change from it, and they want other people to experience it as well. Then the second avenue is we build a lot of relationships with community partners across the city that do really good work and just do different work. So they might do transportation or housing or childcare, and we do the career development. And so we build relationships with those organizations, and then they refer people to us. And then the last way is we market the program. So we do social media marketing to people and share about what we're doing, and people can sign up that way.
Love it. Love that aspect of it. And when it comes to the adults or young adults getting into the work industry and making a name for themselves, it's not just those people that are benefiting from Cross Purpose, but it's also the kids. Yeah. When I was looking through the website and finding that you're providing daycare services so that the adults can actually, be a little bit more skillful going into the workforce. Is there anything else that you might provide maybe for the kids or anything like that? Yeah,
well, I'll answer that question with a story, if that's all right. So outside of Cross Purpose, I work a lot with youth and so lead youth in a couple different things, coaching basketball and some organizations in the city like Young Life, and had an opportunity to bring a bunch of kids from my neighborhood, which is an inner city neighborhood, up to a Young Life camp, which is up in the mountains. It's this huge, massive camp. There was a whole bunch of kids from all the other states and everything, and I got to have a cabin of kids from my neighborhood up there. And beautiful, fun days doing zip lines and horseback riding and all this kind of stuff. And then at the end of the day, we come down to what we call cabin time. So everyone sits in sort of in the floor and get to share and just be open and vulnerable with each other. And it's a lot of time a space that these 17-year-olds or so don't have back at home, and just get to be real and get to open up. And so one of these kids got to open up to me and to the group one night and said, "Man, I have been taken away from my dad's out of my life. He was never involved. My mom, I got taken away from her because she was going through substance abuse issues and some addiction stuff. And so was bouncing around in foster care in 12 different foster homes in the last 6 years."
Wow.
And taken away from my sister and my mom and everything I knew. But then he starts to tear up and cry as he shares that, "Man, I just got reunited with my mom, and she has a job now. She's got stability. My sister is back. We've got a house to live in, and we've got food on the table." And he's just crying as he's so excited and so happy that this is happening in his life. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, dude, this is awesome. We got to celebrate." And so he's like, "Hey, you got to come meet my mom when we go back down the mountain." So then, a couple days later, we're down the mountain. He goes to introduce me to his mom, and it's somebody that I knew because she was a graduate from Cross Purpose, who is now an alumni of Cross Purpose and went through the program and now has a job, now has housing, now has stability, now has her kids back. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome. I'm getting to see this transformation from both sides, not even knowing that I knew both of them." And that's what it's really all about. So if you want to change generations, yeah, a lot of people start with the kids, but the kids need those parents to be able to be that provider, to be that support, to have that stability. And so I just think that's a beautiful picture of how, if you help the parents, or if you put your own mask on first, in the airplanes, right, then you can help your kids. And so that's our model at Cross Purpose.
Wow, what an amazing story. Thanks for sharing that, Jeff. I mean, that felt really good just to even hear it. It's an amazing story. And knowing that she was an alumni of Cross Purpose just makes it that much more solidified that this is a results-driven nonprofit organization that helps out the community. So thank you for sharing that, by the way. So I know you mentioned earlier with the amount of graduates, and you keep track and tally of those people that get into the workforce and graduate with Cross Purpose. I saw that you have a mission, or not you personally, but Cross Purpose has a mission to have 2,025 graduates by 2025. Is that right? Is there any other program or any other goal that you want to set for Cross Purpose, or anything that I'm missing?
Yeah, that is our North Star right now. During this expansion time, that's what we want to do is get new locations closer to our neighbors need them, and in every high poverty neighborhood in the city. And so right now we started hyper local in Northeast Denver, and we wanted to get really great before we got big. And so we spent the first 6 or so years of the time that the whole team and the founders were building Cross Purpose, just hyper focus on what we were doing, our systems, our processes, our data. And then once that started really working, then we're like, okay, great, let's expand. And so we've started expanding locally. And then now we've started to get the attention of some national organizations. And we now host, or for the last few years, we've been hosting, we call it Cultivate. And we bring in all of these organizations from all over the country that want to do what we do. And we give our information out freely to all of them. We give all of our curriculums, all of our processes, all the mistakes we made, all the things that are working. And then we go help them launch sites in their cities. And so we've got about 6 sites that are up and running in other cities that we don't manage, but we just consult and tell, here's all of our information. Hop on the phone whenever you've got an issue, and we'll just help them do what they do. And then there's others that are trying to get started. And so that's that's our next step is we want this to be able to be a national model that anybody across the US that wants access to get out of poverty will have the opportunity to do so.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is giving me chills. I love the aspect of freely giving, freely just this is what we learned and we want you to replicate this nationwide. I just love that thought process, and there's got to be more organizations like you. So this is the one way to do it, especially in every other metropolitan city or every other town in the US. This is really good. So with that being said, that kind of growth, that sort of attention, that publicity that Cross Purpose is getting, what do you mainly attribute that to? Do you feel like that's more of a, you know, a forever giving, that go giver mentality, or do you think that it's a little bit more internal? Maybe it is the skill set that you implement into these graduates. Can you think of anything that you mainly attribute that growth to?
I think I attribute that growth to us being an organization that is run like a for-profit Fortune 500 company that is so impact driven and data driven and outcomes driven, but at the same time being all about relationship, all about our leaders. It's people that matter. And so to have both of those combined at the same time, I think is really rare, especially in the nonprofit space. I think a lot of nonprofits really love people, but aren't really wired to let's keep track of data or let's see what the outcomes are for this program, and aren't willing to have the hard conversations of how do we pivot, or is this working, is this not working. And so for us to be able to do that, plus, man, all we care about is helping love people and get them out of poverty. That's what we want to do. And we want them to have a better life and to be able to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And so I think it's that combination that's been successful for us.
I love it, man. And as far as I know, I mentioned that 2025, you plan on having 2025 graduates, but are there any other big goals in the future for Cross Purpose? Maybe even 5 years down the road, do you foresee it being even out of Denver State, further in the Front Range? Is there any other growth opportunities that you're seeing with it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of talk. We've got a great visionary leader who gets to think through how do we grow this? How do we expand? And so that's where this national model is coming. There's another project we're working on right now that we're really excited about. It is basically this cliff effect calculator. So cliff effect is this idea that as you make more money, your government assistance decreases. And so you're making more, but your assistance is dropping faster than how much money you're actually making. So for every dollar you make, you might be losing $2 extra. And so you're actually worse off. And it's a really kind of backward system that people don't understand. The government doesn't really even understand how that process is working. And so we've created a model that shows that of, all right, with your amount of government assistance, with your amount of kids, with your income, with your health benefits, all that stuff, as you keep making money, when does this cliff happen, and how do we get over that? And so we want to create that model, and then we're presenting that to different governments and foundations so that we can address this problem and actually have the government helping us to get folks out of poverty and not keeping them in poverty with this cliff.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And to like the normal population, I guess the average population, we're just not understanding of that. Like we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And as you, Jeff, like I love that you're in the trenches and you can really see where the pain points are and where people are finding like that bottleneck in order to get to that next stage in life, and in order to really succeed and have that generational wealth go down the line for their kids and the grandkids. It's good that someone like you is also like just keeping that in mind as you go forward. So I love the whole aspect of Cross Purpose. So is there anything you wanted to mention? Well, actually, there is one thing that I wanted to ask you about, that whole social ROI aspect of it that we mentioned prior to getting the recording done, or at least getting it started when we first talked. What is that aspect of it? Is there anything you can, I guess, detail on?
Yeah, I love this concept, especially as an investor. And hey, this is an Invest in Denver podcast. And so I love this idea of ROI. And what we calculate at Cross Purpose is SROI, which is the social return on investment. So that's for every dollar donated to Cross Purpose to help sponsor these classes and the certifications and the programming. So every dollar given to cross purpose, what return, what impact is it actually having for our community? And so we had an independent study done to figure this out and came up with for every dollar given to cross purpose, there's a $6.45 return on investment of that dollar. And so that's calculated by our graduates' new earned income, a decrease in government assistance, and increase in taxes paid. And so that is how that's calculated. And that's something else I think is really sets us apart from other organizations is we can tangibly see, if you're given $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever it is, we can show you what kind of impact that's having, and then you can actually meet the people who you're impacting. And so that part we really love.
I absolutely love it. And as a investor myself, that is something that I really in tune to and just speaks to me as an investor. So I love that aspect of it. So thank you so much, Jeff. With that being said, I just for the sake of time and everything, is there anything else you want to bring up with Cross Purpose before I turn the tables and give you the mic if you want to ask me anything in return?
Yeah, I think that what I would love listeners to know is if anything that I talked about just sort of hit your heartstrings or you wanted to learn more about it, I would love to connect with you. I'd love to show you Cross Purpose. We are constantly looking for people to be a part of the ally group. So these volunteers like Scott Trench has been to walk alongside the people going through the program. And then we need funding. So this is a privately funded organization so that we can offer it fully free to all of our neighbors. And so we're looking for people that would be interested in having a conversation about that and seeing what that would look like to partner with us financially.
Fantastic. And we'll definitely get your contact information on this episode after turning the tables over to me. But yes, we're definitely getting that contact information out there for you. So is there any questions you wanted to ask of me prior to getting to that contact part?
Yeah, I got two questions for you. I'm going to start with a personal one for you. I just briefly heard that you, in a past life or maybe in a current life, you were a geologist. And how did you get into that? And where did that passion come from?
Yeah, totally. It's funny, I sort of just stumbled into it when I was in community college. And actually, that's something I want to ask you after you ask your questions is the community college aspect of it, which I found to be much more fruitful, in my opinion, than the university aspect of it. So I found that professors in community college were going to their 9 to 5 and then coming to junior college to teach me night classes. I mean, I was working full time as well, but then I would supplement that with my education at night. So I found that working with professors that were in the industry, I learned so much from that. So long story short, I got a lot of my credits in community college. I was there for like 7 years because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I found out that I built enough credits for being a geology major. And I was like, shoot, I like hiking and being outside. Let's do it. So I ended up going to UC Santa Cruz, graduating with a geology degree. And I mean, I'm fascinated by it now more than I was before, just because I was almost forced into it just because I needed some sort of major or some sort of degree. But as I grew into that geology aspect, or I keep saying aspect, but geology major and going into that business, I realized that I was working with a lot of real estate agents and also investors and lenders because I was doing phase 1 due diligence processes with commercial properties. And some of them were even buying up Airbnbs or portfolios and things like that. I was like, what are they doing with this stuff? And I learned more and more about real estate, and I wanted to get into it myself because I was just working with 2 commas in some of these digits as far as what the transaction was looking like. So I realized that, and I started to look like, same with you. I learned about bigger pockets. I was learning about it 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5. And eventually, when I came over to Denver, I was like, I'm over this whole geology thing. I do not like working in the wintertime with my hands because I got these long fingers and I'm surprised I'm not frostbitten. And I wanted to just go head first into real estate, and I was investing already, and I was like, might as well become a realtor. And I have not looked back since. I enjoy my rocks, but I don't want to get paid for it. I'd rather keep that as a hobby rather than a lifestyle,
Man, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right, my second question, which is, you started talking about the real estate side. And so for me, this has been the craziest real estate year since I started investing. And so I want you to predict, on record here, what you think the next 12 months is going to look like for real estate investors.
Oh man, I got my 8 ball and my crystal ball all right in front of
Good,
me.
good.
So, yeah, it's funny. Like 12 months into the future, you might as well get an 8 ball, and that will predict as well as what you're predicting right now. So, I guess I've been hearing some rumors from Fannie Mae, like on CNBC or MSNBC, saying that they want to decrease rates so that it can increase spending in the near future, or like 2023. I don't know how likely that is. They could just be rumoring that just so that people get excited for it or hold on to the money. I don't know. The thing is that demand is still really high comparatively to, let's say, 2020, 2021. I mean, that was extreme. But the thing is that nowadays with interest rates as high as they are, demand is a little bit lower, but it's still on the seller market side just because supply is not getting up to that demand speed, right? So the Fed did a really good job in decreasing demand by increasing rates significantly from June, July, August, even September, where like you went from like a 3% in early 2022 to 7.5% nowadays, even for a primary residence. They did a really good job of slowing that demand down. So whether they want to bring up that demand again, that sounds like that's what they want to do in 2023. They're anticipating getting into the 4.5% in 2023. I have no idea. And I guess to give you that crystal ball, just because you asked for it, I will say that we will be seeing a buying frenzy if it goes down to 4 to 4.5%, just because supply still has not caught up to demand. So if it still has not caught up, there's still a limited amount of supply out there. People still want to buy, especially at that sort of rate. So pick your poison. Do you want a high mortgage rate, or do you want a high 50K to 100K over asking price situation? So no matter what it is, you're still going to be fighting something as a buyer and as you go into these investments. So at this point, if you're asking me, buy right now so that you can get all these added benefits from it, from like egress windows installed, repairs, replacements, under asking price, all that good stuff. And then next year, just refinance when it goes back down to 4 or 4.5%. So that's my 2 cents.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is price is permanent, interest rate is temporary, and so you can make some purchases based on that. My personal thinking is it's going to be longer of a turmoil time than we think, and I'm basing this off of how they rolled out kind of COVID stuff. It was, hey, just 2 weeks, it'll be fine, just 2 weeks, and then quarantine all that stuff, and then it's just all right, another month, and it's been a couple years. I think that's how humans need to hear information, or they can't hear it all at once. And so I
Mm.
think it's actually, yeah, I think next year, early next year, it's going to be fine. Real estate is just, it lags behind the rest of the market, and so I don't I don't think it's going to be that quick of a turnaround. And I don't think any politician wants to say that, right? They need to get reelected at midterms and all this kind of stuff. But I believe that it will take longer than we think it is to recover. But I'm also fine. I'm still looking at properties now. I'm fine buying on the way down and buying on the bottom and buying on the way up. Just hedging your bets, because there is still good deals to find in any market.
I agree. And you spoke it like a true investor. I love that aspect. It's like, more succinctly put, this is really good. And I'm glad you're looking into that as well. Going into the coming years, I mean, it's the whole buy and hold strategy. I mean, it's all a matter of like, if you wait 10 years, you're going to win. I don't see that going in any direction. And my grandparents, my great grandparents have all seen that happen. Buy, hold on to it for 20, 30 years, and you'll be much more richer and much more well off than when you first bought. So with that
Yep.
being said, Jeff, thank you so much for even like spending time with me, talking about Cross Purpose. And this is why I wanted to project it out into the world, what you guys do and the amount of value you give, not only to the community, but also to that social ROI that you brought up at the very end. So with that being said, how do people reach out to you or Cross Purpose to provide even more value for you guys to spread that mission?
The best way to connect with us is go to the Cross Purpose website, which is crosspurpose.org. So crosspurpose.org. And you can learn all about the organization. There's ways to give and support the mission. And then you can find me, Jeff Hall, on that website, and you can contact me directly that way. Would love to talk to anybody that wants to learn more about what we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff. And I'm Ian Jimeno, Ian.real estate agent on Instagram, YouTube, and I post up weekly videos on house hacking, how to just boost up your wealth. I mean, that's the best way without any sort of like high barrier to entry. 5% down, rent out the rooms, you're set for life. And do it 2 or 3 more times. It just makes so much sense to me. Ask me and DM me about all that stuff. So be sure to leave a like, follow, review, 5 stars, comment, subscribe, or whatever the kids are doing these days. And Jeff Hall is a pleasure to talk with and interview. So definitely reach out to Jeff. With that being said, thank you for listening to the Invest in Denver podcast. And thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Ian.